Mm. Well, today our lesson is don't play a losing game. And that don't sound like kind of like a Sunday school lesson, does it? But it's to understand the importance of reconciling disputes within the church family. And Sally, you ready to read for me, dear heart?
Yeah, all ready.
With your nice little glasses on.
So I can see.
Yeah.
When someone in your assembly has a legal case against another member, do they dare to take it to court to be judged by people who aren't just instead of by God's people? Or don't you know that God's people will judge the world? If the world is to be judged by you, are you incompetent to judge trivial cases? Don't you know that we will judge angels? Why not ordinary things? So then, if you have an ordinary lawsuit, do you appoint people as judges who aren't respected by the church? I'm saying this because you should be ashamed of yourselves. Isn't there one person among you who is wise enough to pass judgment between believers? But instead, does a brother or sister have a lawsuit against another brother or sister? Or do they do this in front of unbelievers? The fact that you have lawsuits against each other means that you've already lost your case. Why not be wronged instead? Why not be cheated? But instead you are doing wrong and cheating, and you're doing it to your own brothers and sisters.
Okay. In other words, instead of this lesson, Paul is telling us that not only to not have quarrels among yourself, I must have a hair hanging, some of it keeps tickling me. But to have it in your church family. And if you have your student book here, I don't know if you read your lesson or not, but it gave some examples about lawsuits and how trivial some lawsuits are. And it says, if you haven't had to deal with one another in a specific case, and this author had looked up some cases that were kind of trivial that she thought would kind of bring about how stupid, I'd say, some lawsuits really are. And it said in 1994, a woman went to McDonald's for a cup of coffee, and I remember this incident.
I do too.
By accident, the coffee was dropped in her lap, and she suffered third-degree burns and underwent skin grafting. For the record, McDonald's employee didn't spill the coffee. They merely provided for her what she wanted, what she paid for. But the woman sued McDonald's and settled with them for an undisclosed amount, most likely a lot. Well, from that time on, all the cups at McDonald's feature warning. One probably needs warning, contents within hot. Like you didn't know if you ordered hot coffee, it would be hot.
She probably would have complained if it had been cold.
Exactly.
As I recall, she put it between her legs to hold it and crushed the cup. So
And it shot out, yeah.
Just went everywhere.
She was driving. In 2018, a 69-year-old man wanted to legally change his age to avoid ageism. Being his age meant he didn't get the job opportunities he hoped for and made it harder to meet women on his favorite dating app. His solution? Legally make himself younger. He lost the case. In 2017, a woman sued Jelly Bean because they used the term evaporated cane juice instead of sugar in the ingredient description. She claimed they were misleading customers to think there was no sugar in the product. To say it simply, the woman sued a candy company for not disclosing that there was sugar in the candy. The case was dismissed. Well, I don't know if you can put evaporated. If it's cane juice, you know it's sugar.
Some people aren't very intelligent.
Nope. In 2012, a fugitive facing murder charges kidnapped a couple. He fell asleep, they escaped, and eventually they sued the kidnapper for $75,000. His response: he countersued them for breach of contract. He claimed they had an agreement. They were to keep quiet and hide from the police, and they didn't. A kidnapper sued those he kidnapped for escaping. The case was dismissed. Finally, one of my favorite lawsuits. A prison inmate in 1995 sued himself. He claimed it violated his religious beliefs to get himself arrested, and since he was a ward of the state, they should pay the $5 million he was requesting. His case succeeded. No, it did not. It was dismissed. So we can look at other cases that we find that's just as silly as that. Countersuing, suing people. And this is what Paul is trying to tell us, that, he was concerned that the members of the church in Corinth was filing lawsuits against each other. And he was saying that we are supposed to be brothers and sisters in the church. And it's just little trivial cases. And the worst was they were debating these cases in front of unbelievers. In other words, they were going to somebody who they thought was going to be on their side. And that was not what Paul said we should do. It was not a matter who won or lost the civil case. It was the fact that if it's in the church has already lost. And you think about it, a lot of churches close up, or people leave because of dissension that's going on within the church. And I thought about Miss Donna Rose right here, how I got so upset when they cleaned out that room back there. I guess I might say I was concerned that I wasn't consulted. I'll put it that way. But, things happen in the church that we all don't agree on. And this is what Paul is trying to tell us. Just accept it and move on. And I finally had to do that. Because, I had a lot of stuff in that room, and I guess that's one reason that kind of upset me, that some of the stuff was moved and I wasn't consulted where it went, and it disappeared and all this kind of stuff. But, I didn't have no lawsuit, that's for sure. But I did get upset about it. And I can't say I won or I lost. I can't say that they won or lost. But it went on, it happened, and things went on back to normal. But when we have grievances, we do need to sit down and settle and talk about it. And it's just like, to me, I never had children, but I think if you really had children and then you had two children that were disagreeing with each other, you could be the mediator to sit down and let's talk about it. What is the problem? And that's kind of what we need to do in our churches. If we have problems, we need to sit down and talk about it. And that way we can settle our disagreements. Now in the Corinthian churches, a lot of that was done between the wealthy and the poor. And I know when I was a lot younger, it was more emphasis put on between the wealthy and the poor, I think, than it is now. We still have the poor. We'll always have the poor. And we'll always have those wealthy ones too. But, it's, at least we don't look at people in our church who come in our church not dressed like us or act like us. We don't say, I'm sorry, you can't come to our church. We accept everybody.
Did you wear your gloves and bonnet today?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think Plank Chapel, I think we kind of followed how Paul has asked us to follow, how to live and how to do and act in the church. Because it's not an individual exactly who loses, but the whole church loses. Because people say, they have a lot of problems in that church. They fussing and arguing all the time. You ain't going to that church. You're going somewhere else. So the church is the one who really loses a lot, I think, when you have disagreements. And, Christ always emphasized that we needed to love and show compassion to our brothers and sisters. Well, Paul warned the church about deceptive would-be leaders who were interested in glorifying themselves instead of God. So we have to watch out for that also, because that weakens the church when we have certain people who think that they are the owners of the church, the rulers of the church. And I know I've made this comment here lately. Over at the cemetery, John Abbott has been talking to me about the cemetery, and he says, well, you know a lot of the people that were buried over there, where most of us don't. I said, well, yes, I guess I'm the oldest one that attends church at Plank Chapel now. John Allison comes back every once in a while. I said, but I guess we're the only people that remember a lot of them that were buried over there. Of course, and you would remember. But, and of course, Roxy hadn't been here all these years, so she wouldn't remember a lot of them. And I know that I don't think we know anything but the Hunts that's buried in the old cemetery over here. But I was told, and I think Miss Bertha told me, her mom and daddy were buried over there. But there's no tombstones.
Yeah, I've often wondered about that. Why haven't they cleaned it up and taken care of it?
Yeah, the Methodist men cleaned it up one time nice, but it was not kept cleaned. When I had the youth, we were going to get in there and clean it. And we started right around the edge, but that's all the far we ever got. We got in there and looked, and you could tell where the graves were because of the dips in the soil. And some of them had a lot of rocks sitting there. But who's actually buried over there, we don't know. Now, it would really be interesting to know who was buried over there.
Are they in the church records?
Not that I know of. Because that was before, I guess that was when we had that little log thing here, whatever it was that they worshipped in, I don't know, before this actual church. And do you happen to know when that cemetery was started?
No, but it's, I would say the early 1800s. Because if you look at some of the headstones, there's people that died at that time.
But over here it's probably in the 1700s, and some of them may be slaves. We don't know.
In fact, Gwen's grandparents over there, who I know died in like 1895. That was late 1800s. Never mind.
Are they buried over there?
Yeah. William Kirkland Duke and his wife.
So it would. I would love to just know some of the people that were buried there. But the Hunts, they were rich enough that they had a rock wall and stone put there. That's that corner lot.
Yeah.
And that was Governor Hunt's grandparents or great grandparents. I can't remember which right now.
Somebody said mother, but I didn't.
Not his mother.
Yeah, I didn't
No.
dwell on it because.
No, it's his grandparents or great grandparents. I don't remember which right now.
Oh, that's sad.
And he was invited to the 200th anniversary, but he didn't come. So we can say Governor Hunt had ancestors who came here, I reckon you might say. But anyway, Paul warned us that we need to call attention when we do have divisions in the church, and we don't know what happened to these people over here. It looks like to me it's a big gap between this group and this group. So I just really don't know and why that. But anyway, when we go back and talk about the dissension within the churches, you think about it. Union Chapel used to be with Plank Chapel. We had this disagreement. And I never have learned what the disagreement was over.
There was some teaching in a book, I think.
I
read that somewhere, I think.
Oh, did you? I don't know. I just always heard that some of them got mad with Plank Chapel and pulled out and started Union Chapel.
I think that's probably what I read.
Did what?
I think it's a paper at the house somewhere. It's not thrown away. It's got the history of Union Chapel.
Union
It's in your
Chapel.
secret storage.
Huh?
It's in your secret storage.
You put it where you could find it.
Mhm. I have a lot of
He's
that.
got all this, I got papers back there when, I don't know, back there way back, farms.
And I could have read it as well, black baby.
And they had a symbol when somebody sealed it, the dog draw a little ring around it,
Uh-huh.
seal.
Well, see,
Yeah, hand drawn.
your mama had a lot of papers that I threw away when I cleaned out her house. And then I thought about it later. Some of them I should have kept, but you know.
And I got a lot of papers that Jackie back now. She sent me the history of the Smith family. I mean,
People you don't even, never heard of.
Yeah.
You know, we need someone who is old enough to be interested and young enough to be around for a while that will go through all those papers that Hilma so carefully put together and preserved, and that's safe, and find, you know, research the history.
Mm-hmm.
Don't want to tell you, but this is funny. I went down to see Henry Brown at the restaurant one day, and I was coming out of the room, and this black man was coming in from the dining room. And he was all dressed up, so I was just making conversation.
He even with his hat.
And we was on,
I said, he even had his hat on.
yeah, but I mean, he was really dressed, and we was coming up the hall, and I said, I bet you are a preacher. He said, no, I'm not. He said, but I'm a deacon. I said, well, I knew you had something to do with the way you dressed. I said, you know, so he kind of asking me questions about me, this one and that one. He asked me when I lived. And I went on telling him, and he asked me, did I know the Smiths over there at Kipple? He named them all, Mildred and Eleanor and Joe and all of them. I said, yeah, I do. I said, I knew them. He said, well, they are real nice people. I said, yeah. He didn't know I was kin to them. So he went on talking. He says, do you ever go in the courthouse? I said, once in a while. He said, you know that picture up there on the thing? He says, that's my granddaddy.
Yeah, sure.
I said, well, holy cow, it's my great-granddaddy.
Yep. Yep, back then was a lot of that.
So I said, holy cow.
I know that, our grandma, she used to talk trash about him.
That was her dad.
Yeah.
But she still talk trash about him.
Well, you know, and a lot of that caused dissension in the families. Like Paul says, you know, you lose, but you know, take the loss and move on. Move on.
I didn't have nothing to do with it.
You know, tell him what it is if you get into it.
That's
I'm
right.
not gonna call nobody's name, but somebody used to have something to say about people, this and that and that. And I asked him one day, I said, have you ever heard so-and-so and so-and-so? Yeah.
That's why I don't want to look up my family history. It might be too many skeletons in the closet. I don't want to know.
Well, the thing of it is, I didn't know it at the time either, but I mean, what can I do about it?
What is. And what was.
You can't change it, so you.
And what will be.
You know, be that way. It's been going on for years and years and years, and it's gonna be on.
Absolutely. Yep. That's the reason we say, you know, judge not others lest ye be judged. Because we all have done things, and it's all in our families and everywhere, and it's in our churches, things that happened in our churches, and like we were talking about, what happened because that caused Union Chapel to branch off from us, and look at right now, I think Union Chapel is doing better than we are. Yeah.
I don't think it had any why they branched off, but I think it had a date that they could branch off.
Mm-hmm.
Somewhere around 1830, I think.
I can't remember all this.
A long time ago. Yeah, and I don't really know how organized Pint Chapel really was as a big church at the time.
So we lost one family called Pat and Jay Ford going down there.
Oh yeah. And one reason they're going is because they pulled out of the Methodist Conference. They did not like the Methodist Conference at all.
I think they got upset when Carl Dean, I think it was, took the
Flags.
flag in the church.
Yeah. And you know,
Still understand that one.
that's another one of the things that causes dissension. You know, one little thing can cause people to get upset with what goes on in the church, instead of trying to settle it and you know, saying why we don't have this state flag in here and all this, which, I mean, we had the Christian flag, so what, as long as you got that. But anyway, I don't think we're here to worship the flags anyway. I don't care what kind of flag it is. So, and I think that's what causes a lot of dissensions within the churches, is the fact that certain rituals or certain things that are done that we don't really like. And I get real tickled at Edgar every Sunday when we go out. He may look at this and see it, but anyway, he'll say, Miss Donna Rose, when can I come see you? I want to come see you. I love our conversations. And I'm one of these that tell it like it is.
You know what he asked me last Sunday over that,
Sunday before last.
Sunday before last, man. He said, where's Ann at today? I said, she was up there in the choir.
He come up there and spoke to me.
They just had a singer, Mama Henry.
Well, you know, sometimes I,
Maybe he just said to have a conversation, but it sounds all stupid to me.
yeah. He just wasn't thinking at that moment, Henry.
They were just trying to open his mouth and say something.
Instead of just saying, good morning, Henry, how are you today? Yeah.
That's one of those, oh yeah, moments.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But,
I also, you always say, I haven't seen her today, have I seen you?
you know, it's, sometimes I used to talk to Pat sometimes Sunday afternoons, and she'll say, who was there, and this and that and the other. And she'll say, well, so-and-so there, and I say, I think so. You know, I do go around and count how many is there. That way I feel like I'm putting my eye on everybody that's there.
That's the only time I get over preaching.
Huh?
That's the only time I get over preaching.
Counting people. Well, you know,
Wednesday morning.
Huh?
Don't lose me.
a lot of times I tell myself, Henry, I get out of it what I put in it. And I put very little in it. And that's wrong of me. I'm sorry, but I don't follow along a lot of times. I'll be listening, I'll follow this, and the next thing you know, my mind has drifted off over here
I
somewhere.
know, I said, I started out trying to listen, next thing I know, I'm up on my heel herding my sheep.
But anyway, Paul is trying to tell us that we need to be disciples that go out and witness to people. We need to be a person who can accept if we're being wronged. We need to not be the kind that jumps up and wants to have a lawsuit of everything and take it to court and all this. And Paul asked the question in verse 7. He says, why not be cheated? Well, you know, we as humans, we don't like to be cheated. We don't like to be told we're wrong. But if somebody's struggling, it's worse off than we are, why are we to question them? Christ set the example that we were to love everyone. And I can honestly say in my heart, I do not hate anyone. Never have, and hope I never will. Now, I may have disliked something they did to me or something other, but I'm not going to hate that person, because I don't want nobody to hate me. Please, if you know of anybody who's got a grievance against me, please let me know, because I'll go try to straighten it out, because that I do not like somebody to be against me. But anyway, we are to try to settle our differences within ourselves, within the church, because when we do that, we are harming the church itself, and the church loses more than we do. So let us pray. Gracious God, help us to look at our neighbors and see what you see. Enable us to see their potential and not their shortcomings. We pray that in letting down our guard to you, we can experience your love and connect your love to all that we meet. In Jesus' name, amen.